Chapter 3. Keep your eyes on the ball. It's hard to think about algebra when all I can think of is food. This quote was printed on a poster over an image of a little African child sitting on the ground and looking up towards the camera. The child was in a terrible state, dirty, malnourished, probably sick, and with a sad and hopeless look in its eyes. This heartbreaking example is mentioned as a real and tangible example of the importance of getting the priorities right. While the child will certainly benefit from education as it goes through life, its immediate needs are clearly more basic. If the child doesn't get enough water and food, if it doesn't get a roof over its head, if it doesn't get security, it may not survive to get the education. That's the grim reality. Today, we are constantly and mercilessly bombarded with information from all kinds of directions and with all kinds of messaging and agendas. With this overwhelming amount of available information, combined with most people's short attention span these days, you need to make a lot of noise to be heard or even noticed. Drastic times calls for drastic measures, as they say. One way to increase the chances of getting noticed is to craft your messaging in an overly dramatic way, preferably with some kind of apocalyptic or dystopian touch. You will play on people's fears, catch their attention, and this essentially means that you are exploiting their vulnerabilities. In other words, information becomes weaponized in this area too, which leads people into extreme directions. One of the problems with extremes is that it usually automatically leads to another extreme on the opposite side of the spectrum it addresses. It may be argued that there is plenty of evidence in history that extremes, of any shape or kind, rarely leads to anything good or desirable for humanity in general. Therefore, there are reasons to be measured and balanced. This paper does not attempt to dismiss or disqualify any messaging that gets to you, nor does it claim that calls for action in these messages should be entirely ignored as a general rule. But what this paper argues is that we are best served by being able to prioritize on what really matters and what we should be focusing on. All the messages may be important, but it could be argued that not all of them are equally critical in the short to medium term. Let's put this into perspective with some of the current themes that are being widely discussed these days. The armed conflicts in Ukraine and in Gaza, financial deficits, pension, pandemics and vaccinations, gender considerations, political turmoil, social and healthcare, the environment, education, the climate, unemployment, etc. We could make this list very long, but let's stop there. People are divided over the absolute importance of the individual themes, and even more so in comparison with the other themes. It is hard, and perhaps even foolish, to imagine that we will ever reach consensus over them, unless something catastrophic happens. And even then, the consensus may fade away over time. For instance, immediately after World War II, literally everyone agreed to this one thing, which was, never again. Take a look at us now. We haven't exactly lived up to this commitment, have we? It is better to be divided by truth than united in error. Consequently, it will once again be up to you what you should be focusing on and how you should prioritize these themes. You need to keep your eyes on the ball, so to speak. Your prioritization will also guide you in how much of your precious time you should be spending on them. It should be proportionate. One thing seems clear. It would probably be overly optimistic to think that you can fully and meaningfully engage in all of these matters at the same time. There is no universal right or wrong, as we all have different life situations, different values, and different perception of the world. Context is everything. One way of keeping your eyes on the ball is to select a framework for your thoughts that suits you and that will help you in making the right priorities. There are plenty of thinkers who have developed ideas on this, and you just have to try and give yourself the time to study them. The man who does not read has no advantage over the man who cannot read. One school of thought that you may wish to consider is the work of the famous psychologist Abraham Maslow. More specifically, his hierarchy of needs. This theory suggests that human beings have different levels of needs which must be fulfilled in a particular order for a person to reach their full potential. The hierarchy is often depicted as a pyramid with 5 levels, starting from the bottom of the pyramid. These levels are described as 1. Physiological needs, 2. Safety needs, 3. Love and belonging needs, 4. Esteem needs, and 5. Self-actualization needs. The physiological needs are the most basic human needs necessary for survival, such as air, water, food, shelter, sleep, and reproduction, sex. The safety needs are related to security and stability, such as job security, financial security, security and protection from harm, and law and order. The needs for love and belonging are related to social connections and relationships such as friendship, family, community, sense of belonging, love, and affection. The esteem needs are related to self-esteem and recognition, such as self-respect, recognition from others, achievement and success, status, and prestige. Finally, the self-actualization needs are related to personal growth and fulfillment, such as realizing one's potential, pursuing one's passions, achieving personal goals, finding purpose and meaning. This hierarchy suggests that lower-level needs must be met before higher-level needs can be fulfilled. The theory has been criticized for being overly simplistic and not considering individual differences and cultural variations. While it has its limitations, it remains a useful tool for a basic understanding of human needs and how they relate to one another. And you can make use of it for yourself when navigating all the issues that all claim to be at the same level of importance and criticality. Look at the quote at the beginning of this chapter, and you can immediately understand how it fits into this theory. It relates this theory neatly to a sadly very real and practical context. Furthermore, remember the story from the previous chapter about people hoarding toilet paper during the pandemic lockdowns. It can be argued that these toilet paper hoarders did not consult Maslow's theory before they ran out and bought all the toilet paper that they could get their hands on. Here is an idea. Perhaps they should have spent that energy developing strategies and prepare for how to survive should the power grid go down, no water coming out of the tap, the heating giving up on them and food running out, instead of taking these things for granted. In any civilization, only 9 meals stand between mankind and anarchy. From Maslow's theory, should you choose to apply it, you learn that no matter what is happening, there are some basic first-level needs that need to be met before you should move on the levels above. It is wise not to assume that the first or second level of needs can be taken for granted. In other words, take care of those first. Those voices that make a lot of noise on matters related to the top level of needs will often make a case that those are the most urgent ones to deal with. This may be because all the other levels have been fulfilled in their lives and they cannot imagine a life without the lower levels in place. They may have never experienced it, and that makes it hard for them to imagine that it can be taken away from them. Those that don't join their choir, and especially if you dare to raise a voice of reason, will be quickly and arbitrarily labelled with something terrible. Some of these people will also demand that you respect their opinions, and they will make it clear that you are expected to publicly and enthusiastically announce it. At the same time, the very same people feel no obligation to respect the opinions of others, especially if their opinion is founded in emotional biases rather than being based on factual foundations. There is no interest, on their side, in going into factual discussions, as they often engage in those discussions completely unarmed. They simply don't have the capacity or willingness to engage in a meaningful and rational discussion, as they have no valid facts to defend themselves with. Those emotion-driven ideas often grow in the vacuum of an easy life. But true hardship eradicates quasi-sciences and brings us back to our indisputable basic needs. You can't win these people over unless they are willing to a different realization on their own. If they are adults, it is not your job to save them. Never argue with stupid people, because they will drag you down to their level and then beat you with experience. It can therefore be argued that it is best to just leave them alone with their delusional thoughts, which ultimately most likely makes their lives a dreadful and miserable existence. It is their right to choose that destructive path if they wish to do so. Meanwhile, you can choose not to waste your precious time and energy in trying to convert them, but use it in a meaningful way as you are carrying on with selecting a suitable framework. Do your priority order of things, and then putting your own necessary preparations in order accordingly. The longer we dwell on our misfortunes, the greater is their power to harm us. You could also choose not to fall into the respect trap. What you can do is to politely acknowledge their opinion and accept its existence, but there is no universal requirement for you to respect those opinions. What would be the incentive for you to do that, other than getting them off your back? There is no need to fight them unless your life depends on it, but there is also no need to submit to their unreasonable demands. Just keep calm, apply sanity, and move on. They can simply be seen as speed bumps that make a noise as you pass over them on your path of a good, reasonable, responsible, and enjoyable life. And as with any speed bump in traffic, the second you have passed over it, you forget about it, and the journey continues to your destination. Proposed approach and key takeaways to consider. 17. Don't let anyone play on your fears or try to instill new ones without presenting any valid evidence that justifies it. 18. Accept that a universal consensus over the greater issues won't be reached, and then adapt to that reality. 19. Read things from the many great thinkers and philosophers, and find yourself a framework that helps you prioritizing the many issues that you need to deal with in your life. 20. If you can't figure out which framework of ideas to apply for prioritization, consider giving Maslow's hierarchy of needs a go. Study it and then apply it. 21. Just because something is important doesn't mean it's critical. Set the critical things in order first, before dealing with the important ones. 22. Use your framework to determine how much time and energy you should invest in the different themes. The higher up the priority list something is, the more effort you should put into it. Keep your eyes on the ball. Don't get distracted. 23. Avoid arguing with stupid people. You won't win them over. They are merely speed bumps. Pass over them and keep moving. 24. Don't assume that the means for meeting your first and second level needs can be taken for granted. Plan and implement the necessary arrangements to secure those means. 25. If others utter opinions that you don't subscribe to, politely acknowledge them and accept their existence. But don't allow yourself being bullied into respecting them. There is no such requirement, and more importantly, it wouldn't lead to anything good.